Oh, sorry. Wasn't paying attention. Okay. Thank God I remembered I was on a live. I went all distracted and forgot I was doing a live. Anyway, so just waiting for everyone to turn up. It's always that dead zone when I first come on here, waiting for everyone to turn up. So I figure if someone turned up while I'm just sitting here, they're just going to leave. That's okay. It gets pretty busy anyway. So, okay. So, by the way, I'm in Vancouver, Canada. So where are you? What part of the world are you in? I'm always interested in that. I work with clients all over the world. Fascinating. Hear about different cultures, different religions, different ways, the ways people live. I just find it fascinating. I feel very fortunate. Okay, so where are you from? I think most of my followers, I would assume, would be American. I'm Canadian, by the way. I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. Hello, Oregon. Maureen from Oregon. We're neighbors. Jennifer from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. It snowed today. Ugh. It is pretty. Only when it first snows. Unless you're out in the country, I guess it always stays pretty. Downtown, it turns into a muddy brown mess very quickly. Okay, so Brooke on YouTube is from Michigan. Hi, Brooke. Let me see here. And Shannon is in Ontario. I remember years ago, I think it was an American was visiting, and they saw the word Saskatchewan, and boy, could they not say that, which I totally understand. New Zealand. Oh, okay. Werrida? Sorry, I probably said that wrong. New Zealand. We used to ski in Queenstown. Love that. Chicago. Is that where that is, Brittany? Is it? Not sure if you meant Chicago. Second time here from San Diego. Hi, Linda. Second time. I've been doing these for a couple of years now. I used to do them every single day for about a year and a half. And then I just got busier and busier, so I couldn't. Jakarta, Indonesia. I think I've had a client from there. Western Kentucky. Glad to finally catch you live. Love your videos. Thanks so much, Carmel. Kentucky. I don't know if I've had any clients specifically from Kentucky. I must have. Anyway, Indiana, California. Hi, Imelda. Springfield, Missouri. Becky. Excellent. And Indiana was Jackie. Indiana, 80 degrees for the Friday, 32. 32 now. Oh, okay. My kids, I spent like 20 years in Australia. It was stinking hot there. I loved it though. Hi, Samantha, Indiana. Vancouver, Washington, Lynette. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and I always thought of Vancouver, Washington as a really small town for some reason, because I heard it was small, like years and years ago. I heard, oh, there's another Vancouver, but it's really tiny. It's not. It's actually a really big city. I've never been there. Okay, so let's get going with the live. Tasmania. Never made it down south there. I never made it past. My son was born in Sydney, and then we moved up to Brisbane, and my daughter was born up there, and that's where we stuck. But yeah, I never made it down to Tasmania. I would have liked to. I would have liked to have seen more of Australia, but I just arrived and got pregnant and was out in the suburbs raising kids for all those years. Sudbury, Ontario. Hi, Amy. Hi, Cindy. Pennsylvania, Emily. Major winds, thunderstorms. Oof. I am so ready for spring. A grandma here from Texas. Oh, I'm grandma too. Okay, let's get going with the live. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. I'm also a mom and a grandmother. I got proof because it's on my hat. Anyway, if you check out my website, BratBusters.com, you can find my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, or you can look into the podcast. My daughter and I do it together, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. We film, I would say we use 60 to 70% of the podcasts we film. Sometimes we'll finish one and we'll go, yeah, that was boring. Or else I went off on just too big of a rant. And my daughter says, yeah, I'm pulling that one. Anyway, I don't blame her. I get a little bit heated sometimes. Okay, this is Maureen. I've visited you a few times now, just stumbled upon you in my Facebook feed. I love your advice. You're spot on. Thanks so much, Maureen. I really appreciate that. I'm sure I say stuff wrong sometimes too. Like I'm always saying what I'm thinking, and I'm sure I offend some people. But at least I'm come by it honestly. I swear to God, I only say exactly what I think you need to hear. I don't stop and think all the time how it might make people feel. But my goal here is that you enjoy parenting. And then if you're enjoying parenting, you're going to have nice kids because that's what you enjoy the most, right? Nice kids is a byproduct of what I teach, but really, I really want you to enjoy parenting like I did. I want you to have a blast with it. I want you to just wallow in it, be friends with your kids, but be a leader. So they need, crave, and want leadership. That's always my goal for you, is that you enjoy parenting. Oh, Vancouver, Washington, around 196,000. Oh, I see. Oh, I thought it was a couple of million. I must have read that wrong. Maybe I was looking up my own city. You know what? I could very well have done that. That sounds exactly like something I would have done. So I looked up Vancouver, thinking I was looking up Vancouver, Washington. So I think we've got about 2 or 3 million here. I don't know. Anyway, and I probably looked up Vancouver, Canada, where I am. That sounds like me. Yep. Whenever someone challenges me on anything like that, they're usually right. I'll look something up. I always get it wrong. South Africa, living in I can't pronounce that. I've never heard of that. Mauritius. Never heard of that before. Oh, sorry, I already read that. Okay, so let's get going with your questions. I'll do my best to answer them, but also I throw a lot of other stuff in because most questions revolve around discipline, and that's a small part of what I teach. I really am teaching connecting, how to connect with your kids, how to bond with them, especially with teenagers. Whenever I'm hired to work with parents who have teenagers, they're quite frustrated by me in the first session. I always warn them about that. It's because we're not addressing the behavior you want to fix with your teenagers. What we're doing is I'm teaching you how to connect with your teenagers because that's all you've got. They're going to go behind your back and do whatever they want to do anyway if they don't have a strong connection with you. So I really focus on connection in the first 1 or 2 sessions, big time, with teenagers especially. Vicky, Michigan, wish you were around when I was raising my children. Okay. Using your advice has helped with the tantrums. We have a 4-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. Any advice on a stubborn 4-year-old that still doesn't want to use the potty? His sister is basically potty trained, maybe an accident here or there, and he tells her every time she goes, "Good job, sissy. I'm proud of you." That's really sweet. I don't know okay, so he knows what to do. It doesn't sound like he said he's stubborn though. Just a minute. Do you think he's doing it? Stubborn 4-year-old. Okay. There could be several reasons for that. I'm just going to guess. Maybe he has plot phobia. Maybe his, poop hit the water and it splashed him. Maybe he didn't like that. He could not like that hanging feeling. This is all poop related, by the way, for now. Maybe he didn't like that hanging, tugging feeling when he's sitting on a toilet, or he might have a cold butt and he hates that when he's going to the bathroom. Because when you have accidents, it's all nice and warm and smashed up in there, right? So what you might want to try, even though he's 4 years old, you might want to try a porta potty and say, "Hey, buddy, let's try this and see if you like this better." For now, anyway, it's temporary. And then you put toilet paper in the bottom so he can feel something touching his butt, hike up the heat in the bathroom. You could try all those things. I don't know if that's it, but I do use a reward system with potty stuff. There's no discipline. It's not bad behavior. And I would never, even if they're doing it out of spite, I've had lots of clients who have their kids, especially boys, they do spite pees. They'll pee all over the furniture just out of spite. We still don't discipline that. Well, we do and we don't. And it's a bodily function, and I'm very careful with that. I don't want to mess them up. It's a bodily function. You don't want to start disciplining for pee and poop because then it gets all mixed up. So we do deal with it. Anyway, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. I don't know. Does he respect you? Are you a leader? Generally, if you're a leader, they tend to follow in line because they want to please you. That's naturally when especially when they're kids and they're young. Teenagers, not so much. You want them to want to please themselves, but you're there for the big stuff, the backup. They still care what you think, but you don't want teenagers living to please you. And you don't even really want little kids like that either, but they should want to please you because you're like a leader, you're a guide, you're a mentor to them. Teenagers sort of, they go a little bit off on their own a bit more, which is what you want. I don't feel like I gave you any good advice there. I don't really have any because I don't know what's going on. Anyway, if you're not a leader, check out my free behavior board. You might want to check out my boot camp course for 3 to 12 years old. It sets you up as a leader, and that might help the situation too. And it also has potty training in there, but he's kind of past that whole potty training course, but it might give you some ideas. Okay. CJ Richards, been using your advice and it's been so helpful. Thank you so much for doing these. Excellent. I love hearing that. That's why I keep turning up here. These lives and all these videos and the podcasts, that's all just free content we're throwing out there trying to help. Most people are never going to hire me or buy my courses, and that's fine. But I still want to make a difference in this world. I really want to teach parents how to be a calm leader for their kids. Also play with them, bond with them, connect with them in their world. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about connecting with kids. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I really enjoy kids. And yeah, I liked it. That's why I volunteered for decades with kids, teenagers, everything. I loved it. Okay, Rachel. I run a daycare and I have one child in particular who's can't help you with that. I teach parenting. I don't teach teaching or daycaring or child psychology. A lot of those people are my clients, but they're business. They're different. That's a business. I teach parenting. It's all personal. So yeah, I can't answer any daycare questions because I don't know anything about it. Nothing. Never run a daycare. Okay, how do I open up? Oh, you're not going to like me, Veronica. How do I open up the conversation with a parent who needs help with discipline 3 and 5 years old? You don't. You do not start it. If they ask your advice, then you might say, hey, I came across this woman, might be me or some man or whatever. You came across them. They might resonate with you. But yeah, you don't bring it up. I wouldn't. That would be like saying, what do I do if I have an overweight friend? How do I bring that up? It's the same thing. Any unsolicited advice is criticism. It just is. They might take it well. If you want to give it a go, they might take it well, but I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I wouldn't. Remember, if it's unsolicited, it's just criticism. I have been hired by mother-in-laws to work with their daughter-in-laws. Now, it used to happen more when I had automatic sign up for coaching on my website. I didn't vet them first. But now, if that ever happens, I make sure that you make sure that that's an appreciated gift. Because I'll tell you, I've worked with some daughter-in-laws and I could tell I was not appreciated at all. So yeah, it's very awkward. You're a licensed daycare provider in Minnesota for 26 years. All of what you say is absolutely golden. I've referred so many daycare clients to you just to listen. Oh, okay, that's sweet. Well, you said it's a hot mess out there. I would say for a while there, it potentially was. And you know how I know? Because schools, teachers were telling me that. So, and they see all these kids, right? So I think it's changing a little bit. I really do. I see it coming back around. I noticed about 30, 40 years ago, the pleaser parent style came in big time. It started, and it's all just to feed the mom. It has nothing to do with the kids. It's a good sell. It sounds lovely, all that pleaser parent stuff. It sounds lovely. It's useless though. And it started with participation awards. When I remember the first time I ever heard about that, I said, are you freaking kidding me? You turn up, do nothing, and you get an award? How stupid is that? Anyway, yeah, I have no problem voicing my opinion on that ignorant thing. Anyway, so yeah, that's where it started. And yeah, things really went astray. What was interesting? I didn't see this coming though. What I found interesting about that is parents, of course, lost control because pleaser parent style is useless. So kids are walking all over them, treating them like crap. So, but what I didn't expect was and it's still lingering, that the parents started blaming the schools for the way their kids are turning out, for their kids' behavior, and et cetera. They start blaming the schools. It's your job to turn out nice kids. It's not the school's job. I was shocked at that. I thought, talk about deflecting, talk about no responsibility, talk about, it's just, I won't go on about it, but you can imagine what I was thinking here. I just didn't want to say it. But yeah, don't blame the schools for if your kids are acting out. It's your job. It's your job to send nice kids to school. That's your job. Nice, respectful kids to school. That's your job. Their self-esteem, all that, their sex education, their nutritional education, that's on you. School was invented to teach them academics and keep them alive. That's basically it. But now they're being blamed for the way kids are turning out. Has nothing to do with the school. Those poor schools, they're just hanging on by a thread. The thing is, they have no power to discipline anymore. If a teacher so much looks at a kid the wrong way, the parents take them to court. It's just ludicrous. So they've taken all the power away from schools, and yet they've put a lot more responsibility on them. You can tell I know a lot of teachers, and a lot of my clients are teachers, and boy, I get an earful when they tell me, like, that's all the same stuff. Yeah. Less power, more responsibility, all the blame for how society's turning out. If kids aren't eating right, it's the school's fault. Yeah. If kids are acting out, hitting people, bullying, school's fault. You're the leader. You're the parent. That's your job. That's your job. Yeah, that was a hot mess. I think it's turning around, though. I really do. I think people realize it didn't work. The pleaser parent style raises self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. I'm exaggerating, but that's what I said years ago, and I saw it coming. And very fragile, no fortitude. They don't like to lose at anything. They're very insecure. I saw it all coming. You're raising weak individuals with no fortitude. That's basically what it's based on. It's stuff like this. You get down on a little kid's level and you say, use your words, all that garbage. That's so patronizing. It's horrible. Poor kid is using their words, kicking and screaming. That is their language. Respect it. They're communicating in their way. Okay, I met your doppelganger in Hobby Lobby in Oklahoma yesterday. Well, you know what? I'm adopted. I could be a twin out there for all I know. You know who you probably don't even know who this is. You're too young. But there was this actress. She actually dated Elvis quite seriously. Elvis Presley, the singer. You might not know him either. Anyway, her name was Anne Margaret. And I remember I used to get told probably once every couple of weeks that I looked like Anne Margaret. That was back in the day. Yeah. So I don't even know if she's still around anymore. But yeah, that was the only person I ever got told I looked a lot like. Okay, I have a 4 and a 5-year-old that constantly scream high pitched. Okay. Work on your leadership skills, and then you can address that. That's in the attitude department. Once they respect you, and then once you're a leader, you might want to check out my boot camp course. Yeah, if you've got 2 of them, they're screaming all the time. Once you're a leader, you can just say to them, keep it down, and they'll respect you enough to keep it down. But right now, you got to get respect before you can handle that one. That's a tough one. Oh my. Okay, I'm a 66-year-old widowed grandmother with guardianship of 2 grandsons, aged 8 and 6. Okay, so you're the stand-in parent because I don't teach grandparenting, but you're like the parent. How honest should I be with them regarding their parents? This is what I always tell people. So let's say kids come from a very rough background and the kids don't know it. They might be young. Just say, you know what? They weren't able to raise you. They did the best they knew how, but they just weren't able to, but they loved you very, very much. So don't talk about so much the parents' deficiency, but how much they love them and they just didn't know how. It's more a lack of knowledge, a lack of ability. But yeah, be very positive. And as they get older and older, they're 8 and 6. Yeah, be very careful with that one. But secrets imply shame. So but be careful with the secrets because not all secrets need to be told. You know what I'm saying? So, good for you. I'm 64. Starting all over again, like if I had to raise a grandchild or, something, it would be, of course I'd do it. And I hope to God I never have to, because that would mean something would have happened to my kids. But yeah, good for you. You deserve a medal for doing that. So stepping up. And as we're older women, right? So we're sort of done with all that. But good for you. Yeah, of course I would do it if I had to. Of course I would. Not to say that anyone should do it if they have to. Do you know what I mean? It's a choice. What are the 5 things you recommend for us, the parent, to achieve calm and blah, 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 blah. So calm and modeled behavior. Well, I'll just tell you, I don't have 5 things, but I'll tell you my top, my top 3 leadership qualities. Number 1, be calm during the storms. When you're disciplining, it's like a business transaction. No emotions. You're completely calm. Talk slow, talk low. Very calm. Okay. Number 2, you be crazy during the rainbows. During the happy times, you can be running around screaming and chasing the kids with underpants on your head. That's be crazy during the rainbows. Okay. Now, the third one is be a great listener. This doesn't really apply to little wee ones, but as they get older and they're talking more, then you want to become a really good listener. You listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, especially as they get older. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it as they get older. But what you can do is lead them into things like, what do they call those, leading questions? So what do you think's a good idea? Like if they come to you with a problem, well, what do you think you should do? My mother was really good at that. If I said, Mom, what should I do? She'd go, well, I don't know. You're a smart girl. You can figure it out. And we'd chat about it. I thought I was coming up with all my own solutions. She was sort of feeding me ideas. Well, I don't know. I remember when I was your age, this might have happened. So you want to raise kids who they can tell you anything, right? So, and they will, if you get good at this, they'll tell you everything, but you don't want them to come to you to solve all their problems. You want them to bounce ideas off of you and vice versa. But you want to raise problem solvers. You want to raise strong individuals. But a leader is there for them. You're there like a mentor. You guide them in the right direction as needed, and you encourage them, and you bring out the best in them. Check out the pool story. If you just Google BratBusters pool story, it'll come up. And it teaches the way I feel about parenting. You deal with bad behavior, then you focus on the good kid. Okay, I got to get going. I'm moving over to Instagram now. You can check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses. You can get on the wait list for coaching if you're interested. Or you can look into our podcast. My daughter and I do that together. We're having a lot of fun. We put out 2 a week. And I think she's getting more chatty. She doesn't like being in front of the camera. And it also is on YouTube, so you can see us if you're interested. But she's getting more chatty. It's getting even better because she's starting, and she challenges me on everything, but she didn't used to so much when we first started the podcast a few months ago. But yeah, she's really starting to challenge you now. That's good. It's really good. Anyway, I'm hopping over to Instagram now if you want to follow me over there. And then I will also be going to TikTok, and I'm on YouTube the whole time. That's where all my lives are saved. Happy parenting. I have like 7 buttons to push each time. It's getting worse. They keep adding new buttons to push. Okay, please tell me where I can get help with my 3-year-old daughter. Well, if you go on my website, BratBusters.com, this is on YouTube here. I can't pronounce that. Sorry. Anyway, if you go in the description, you'll see my website, BratBusters.com. You got a free behavior board, starts at the age of 3, courses, coaching. There's a wait list for coaching, or you can look into our podcast. Most of our stuff is free, or you can buy the course or coaching if you're interested. Like my hat's crooked, which way? Okay, so hello, Jamie, and everybody else. It's just Jamie said hi, Lisa. Okay, alrighty. Yeah, I never let anyone in on a live. I did it once a couple years ago. I was brand new at doing lives. And it was a disaster. That was on TikTok, and that's my biggest audience. And yeah, they were just selling stuff they just wanted my audience. They were trying to sell stuff. I didn't know what I was doing. Someone said, can I come in on the live? Sure. Okay. And then I didn't know how to get rid of them. delete. See, I've never done it since. Okay. Alrighty. I don't know what sleep attachment issues means. It means they co-sleep and they don't want to sleep alone. Is that what you mean? I don't know. It's kombucha if anyone's interested. I drink a couple of these a day usually. They're expensive, but they're supposed to be good for you. So, well, this is nice, Jen. I'm a foster parent and I've done lots of training, but I ran across some of your content on YouTube and it's truly some of the best advice I've heard. Thanks so much for that. A lot of my clients are foster parents. And yeah, these kids often come, depends on how old they are, but they often come with a lot of history baggage and that. So yeah. And I do change a lot of stuff I do with them because I don't know how long the placement's going to be for, et cetera. But yeah, they're often foster to adopt. And, but yeah, no, it's interesting. Love my work. Oh, I didn't even introduce myself. Sorry about that. My name is Lisa. I'm a parenting coach, mom, and I'm also a grandmother. If you check out my website, BratBusters.com, you can see my free behavior board, my courses. You can go on the wait list for coaching if you're interested, or you can look into our podcast. My daughter and I work together and we do the podcast together. She does all my marketing, all my social media, and all my planning for the business. So but anyway, we're having so much fun doing it. We're also best friends. We live 5 minutes away walking from each other. Very lucky. Okay, this one, I hate answering this because it's so confusing, but I will. Follow same sleep suggestions you've already mentioned, even if you have kids sharing a room. Not necessarily. That is a per case different, like I give different advice to different families. Usually what I do is I train the difficult kid. There's usually one that's more disruptive or gets out of bed more often. And I take the other one, literally I'll take them in my bedroom with a separate mattress and say, it's just temporary till we sort out the other one. And then you can literally switch if you need to. And I know that seems like you're going backwards, but you're not. As long as they're 3 and over, okay, they'll understand that. They're just temporarily in your room while you're training the other one. Then you can put them back together, or you can try doing them together. It's just a per family basis. My advice is different with a lot of families. So yeah, you do one at a time. Do the more difficult one first. This one's funny. Sore loser. Daughter 8 will make up a competitive game like who can put on shoes first. And then when her 5-year-old beats her, she changes the rules or doesn't acknowledge his win. How to handle? I would acknowledge the win. Way to go. Well, you won. But you know what? I don't know if I would actually. You know why? Because if she's going to be a sore loser, you don't want to encourage the winning or losing. I might just say something like this. Boy, you sure got your shoes on fast, and then ignore her. So acknowledge what the other one did, not so much winning. So you kind of want to nyeh her. You know what I mean? Like ignore her, because she's being rude about it. Bit of a sore loser. What to do when you and your partner have different parenting styles? You don't. What you do, well, you do. There's often, and that's my clients, often there is different parenting styles. But what I meant by that is you have to be on the same page. So you can have different styles, but you have to be on the same page. You can't be contradicting each other. What I suggest you do is you flip a coin and decide whose parenting style you're going to go with for 3 to 6 weeks. If it works, great, keep it going. Although that's not even necessary because sometimes things work in the short term and not in the long term. Yeah, but anyway, flip a coin, decide who you're going to go with, and yeah, and then don't undermine each other. It's when you're undermining each other, that's the problem. It's one of the problems. Oftentimes when I'm coaching, I'll get one parent who doesn't want to be a part of it. It's usually the dad, and it's often overseas. So it's like in different cultures, the man is the head of the house. He's not accountable, right? That kind of stuff. I rarely don't get them on that board, on the behavior board. It's rare that I can't get them on there because they realize it's about connecting with their kids. Oftentimes, the parent who doesn't want to be involved in the coaching, they have often behind the partner's back hired me. Once they realize how connected that leader is getting with the kids, they want that too. So, and I usually tell them, come on, let's tell the other partner. We got to all do this together. But yeah, you just have to pick a path and go on the same one. You don't have to be the exact same style. Like there usually is a much stronger leader than the other one. It's just the way it is. But you don't undermine each other. You both agree that you're going to back each other up. Oh, this is a good one. Do you believe consequences need to be related to the bad behavior? No, the punishment does not need to fit the crime. It's nice if it does. Like if it's something like hitting your brother, then you have to do something nice for your brother. But the rest of it, it doesn't matter. A consequence is just a good deed. Like if you get a speeding ticket, the consequence isn't you have to drive super, super slow for the next 2 days or something. You see, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. You just have to pay money out. So it doesn't really matter. It's just if you do something bad, then you have to replace it with a good deed. That's the idea. Okay. But I know there's another word for that. And I can't remember. It's someone else's terminology. I just use on my own. I've never read a book, but someone said that it's called something discipline or whatever. But it's just not, or is it called organic discipline? What's it called? It's quite a lot of people said, oh, they call it that and that. I can't remember what it is though. But anyway, it's like the punishment should fit the crime. It's okay, but it doesn't need to. That's not the important part. A lot of people get caught up in what the consequences are. I don't. It's just a good deed. Like if my kids had broken a rule, we didn't really have rules in that. I never used a behavior board, but they just knew what was expected of them. But if they did something like, let's say they forgot and they left dirty clothes on the floor or something, then they would come home after school and I'd say, oh, by the way, you left the dirty clothes on the floor. And then they'd say something like, oh, I'll get the brush. They knew that was 5 minutes of brushing my hair. So, which I love. They didn't mind doing it really. I don't think my son liked it, but yeah, just little thing. It's just little. But does that fit the crime? Dirty clothes on the floor and brushing my hair? But still the message is there. Like, okay, this one is a little bit controversial. Well, someone told me it was, but I don't see why it is. Anyway, my almost 3-year-old spits when he's disciplined, would love your advice. Actually, I would put no spitting on the behavior board because he's 3, just no spitting. And every time he does, I would take a wet rag and wipe his mouth. They hate that. They really hate it. That's not the consequence, but I would add that. I would clean, and don't ever ask him to clean up the mess. There's no point. Doesn't teach. There's no lesson in that, by the way. Having to clean up your own spit doesn't stop them from spitting, or not that I've ever seen anyway. So yeah, make sure that you have a wet rag handy or a wet one or whatever you want to use. I don't know. And make sure you wipe his mouth. He won't like that. But then also have a consequence. Use the behavior board and put down no spitting. And don't put segments of a question. If you're going to ask me a question, put the age and the whole question in there. Because I just lose track. I get tons of questions here. So, oh, shoot. Sorry, I'm scrolling way ahead just to make sure. Oh, my goodness. Just to make sure you're still here. Is 2.5 too young for the behavior board? Yes, it is. Their brain just isn't developed enough to stop and think before they act. It's that sense of reasoning, the frontal lobe or the frontal cortex or whatever. I always think of it as a little punching bag, like that thing in the back of your throat. It's not. I've seen a picture of it. It just looks like brain. But I always thought it looked like a little, because they call it the frontal lobe. That's the sense of reasoning. They haven't got it till they're 3. It doesn't mean that they're always going to stop and think before they act, but they have the ability to learn how to start doing that. And it's really close to 3. Like sometimes I'll say to a client, well, maybe like 2 years and 35 months, but not much before that. Like it's 3, that really kicks in. That's not right. 2 years and 35 months, 2 years and 11 months. 35 months is 2 years and 2 years and 35 months. What a dope. So I'm just going to read this out because I wouldn't have a clue. Why does my sister's partner's daughter, 8, hate my sister? How would I know? I never met them. I don't know anything about it. If you check out the behavior board, it's completely free. It'll give you consequence ideas. Don't get caught up in what the consequence is. That's not the focus here. Your consistency and your calmness when you're following through with the discipline is the focus. Also, you're on that behavior board. That's what makes it work. If you're not accountable, you're a dictator or an authority. You're not a leader. No question, just a thank you. You make it possible to parent my 2.5-year-old twins. Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you. 3-year-old calls parents, you said back, but you meant bad words, how to react. 3-year-old, just say no bad words or name calling on the behavior board. Just call it like it is. It's name calling. It's bad words. And that's the rule. Then have a consequence. Check out the behavior board. I'm going to throw some other stuff in here because I've just been talking about discipline, which is really not my focus at all. It's about connecting. So I'm just going to read. Oh, this is interesting too. And I talk a lot about consistency with parents. Like when I'm coaching, I get a lot of these ideas from coaching. And we talk a lot about how do I stay calm? I just keep losing it all the time. And I say, well, unfortunately, that is your challenge with all this. It's like I could set you up with a wonderful fitness plan or something like that. It's still your job to do it. So, and I'm not saying it's easy, but that is your part of it. That's the follow through. And eventually it gets easier and easier. But when you do mess up, there's a consequence for you too with the kids. They love that. So anyway, but I say, if you get really good at staying calm and you're loving by connecting with your kids, kids can't fight with a calm, loving person forever. Nobody can. You can't fight with a calm, loving person forever. You're trying to outlast them here. Okay, they eventually will give in to your leadership because they'll be happier. Anyway, you can't fight a calm, loving person forever. It's true. And also, I teach leadership, and leaders make people feel good about themselves. It's like anybody. Have you ever had like a grandparent, a teacher, a coach that you looked up to? They usually make you feel good about yourself. How do you treat that person? You generally want to please them. You want their approval. You want them to think you're great, right? Because you look up to them. You admire them. That's what we're teaching here, okay? And this also, when you're disciplining your kids, a lot of parents make this mistake, is you're trying to shame and blame them. You want them to feel bad. I don't do that. I think that's mean. I never want kids to feel bad. They will anyway if they've done something bad. Once they start to care what you think, they will. But that's not what my goal is. Hey, look, you made a mistake. Now you got to be accountable for it. I'm teaching accountability here. Like if I make a mistake, I'm accountable for it. So that's what you're teaching. It's not, you don't want them to feel bad. You want them to think, okay, I'm sorry about that. I'll make it up here. What can I do? That kind of attitude. It's the accountability is what we're after here. And then when they get good at that, they're just going to stop acting out because they just will. They're going to feel better because their self-esteem will go up. Children with high self-esteem generally have a leader. And confidence is different from self-esteem. They can go together, but they don't need to. Confidence and self-esteem can be very different. Like you can think really highly of yourself, like in a sort of a calm, you like yourself, in other words, that's self-esteem. Confidence is you have bravado. You can get up on stage in theater and maybe perform, but you could still have really low self-esteem. A lot of actors in that have very low self-esteem, but they can get up and perform. That's how they're, a lot of times that's how they're trying to get self-esteem. That confidence can be different from self-esteem. Anyway, I wrote this down. If your kids feel good around you, they're good around. If your kids feel good around you, they're good around you. What I mean by that is when they're with you, if they feel good, they're going to be good to you. If they feel bad when they're around you, they're going to be bad when they're around you. Okay. How you make your kids feel about themselves is what you're going to get. Do they feel good? They'll be good. If they feel bad, they'll be bad. Right? That would have been a better way of saying it, wouldn't it? Okay. Like when I was working with kids, my goal was always that they like themselves. That's the pool story. If you check out BratBusters pool story, just Google it. It'll pop up. It's called the pool story. And it explains how I operate. I don't let anything go. I deal with bad behavior, but it's fast. No judgment. Just deal with it as a consequence. And then I focus on the good kid. Because where you put your focus, where you put your energy is what grows. And too many parents are trying to stop the bad behavior. Yeah, that's part of it. But I also try and encourage the good behavior rather than like I put my energy in the good kid, not the bad behavior. I deal with bad behavior, but it's not where my energy goes at all. My energy goes in bringing out the best in that kid. Oh, you're asking how do you connect with kids close to you? I just teach parenting here. And I don't know your situation, like how often you see them, what's your role, I don't know. But yeah, I only teach parenting. Discipline and still connect. Discipline is connecting. Okay. I specialize in troubled teenagers, and every single one of them has said this in different ways, but they've all said this. I wish my parents had been tougher on me growing up. They understand that discipline is love. Not mean discipline, but making them accountable for their actions. That is love. Do you love them enough to discipline them? Do you love them enough to bring out the best in them? One teenager even said to me, and they don't want discipline now as teenagers, but they identify they didn't get it growing up. That's why they're in trouble now. Anyway, one of them said to me, he said, my parents didn't love me enough to make me a good person. Wow. Out of the mouths of babes, teenagers. Wow. So they equate discipline with love. Not mean discipline, but effective discipline. Hey, you made a mistake. Here's a consequence. That's why you're on that behavior board too. Oh, goodness. Parents give vinegar to 3-year-old who screams and uses bad words. Would you suggest that? Absolutely not. No. That makes you look like you're out of control. It's mean. Yeah, it's not good. Check out my behavior board. It'll teach you another way to do it. Like rather than just say, don't do that, there's another way. So check out my free behavior board. It's at BratBusters.com. You might want to look into my course too. I have a course for 3 to 12-year-olds. I also have a toddler one. But yeah, the 3 to 12-year-old would be one. Sometimes I'll have a client who does do discipline methods that I don't agree with, and we go over it in great detail in coaching. But yeah, I don't tend to talk about that on here. And just because if they recognize themselves, I wouldn't want them to feel bad. But sometimes you're going to make mistakes is what I'm saying. Doesn't mean you're a bad parent, just means that maybe that was what was done to you. And vinegar in the mouth is not something I would recommend at all. I thought this was so cute. This little boy was 7 years old, and it was one of my clients. And it's so cute. I always get permission if I do tell a story, and I got permission for this one. It was so cute. 7 years old, and he didn't do the first consequence, which was a positive action. So you always resort to the negative deprivation. So he got 24-hour media blackout. So, and I think it was like the next day, and he got his PlayStation or whatever back, and he's playing it, and he said, well, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I thought that was so cute. All he had to do was wash a window for 2 minutes, but instead he wouldn't do it. He was mad, so he wouldn't do it. Then he got 24-hour media blackout. Doesn't apply to everybody. If you don't have a lot of screen time, then it's not going to apply to you. You do something else. I thought that was so cute. Well, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Someone said here, I just want to say thank you. This is guest 8103. Learned so much from your content. God bless. I'm not religious, but every so often I'll say to a client, I'm not religious, but this applies. God bless you. Sometimes parents are just going above and beyond, and just they're dealing with something really, really difficult, and they're just doing their damnedest. And the only thing I can think to say to them is God bless you. I'm not even religious, but I mean, you know what I mean? It's just nothing else really fits except that. Okay. Well, you're answering someone else, but I'm going to read this because it's a common complaint. 5-year-old is always too emotional, cries over anything. You can't regulate someone else's emotions, but by being a leader, children regulate their own emotions around a leader. It just calms them down. It's like that 8-year-old. I know I say this all the time, but it's such a fast, effective story. That 8-year-old I started working with, my very first session, I'm leaning forward. So do you want to get to work? And he said to me, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said to him, bring it on. And he never did. Leaders are good at calming. That's what I want for you. It takes practice. You gotta earn that level. He didn't have a fit. You could see him computing. Oh, she knows what she's doing. He was great with me. The teacher even asked me later, what'd you do with him? Because he was so good for me. And I said, oh, I just asked him to have a fit. But he knew it wouldn't have bothered me at all. Their fits, meltdowns, tantrums are their lessons. That's my opportunity to exercise my leadership, to show it doesn't bother me at all. I'm not reacting to you. But when you're a really calm leader, they pick up on that and it calms them down. They don't tend to get upset as much. It makes them feel safe, makes them feel secure, and it makes them feel good about themselves. A calm leader will make kids feel good about themselves. That's why they don't tend to act out with a leader. You got to earn that, though. You got to work for it. I worked my butt off with those kids I worked with to get that level of respect. And then by the time I had that kid, I already knew what I was doing. Like, it just comes naturally, but I really worked it. I started volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11 years old. I was always kind of good at this, but I honed it over the years, over the past 53 years. I honed it and really figured out, what really, really works pretty much every single time. Like in the way I worked with kids, which is calm leadership, but I lead with connection, connecting with them. Okay, in their world, not mine. So yeah, your leadership will calm them down. And it's a process. Like, I don't fix kids here. I fix and teach parents. So we're basically changing a lot of your personality. Right now, if you're struggling with your kids, you're probably pretty reactive. Whereas I don't do that. I act and let them react to me. There's a shift there. I stay on the high road. If they're on the low road, they're screaming, they're having a fit. I stay on that high road, calm as a cucumber. I wait till they join me. I don't go down on their low. No. Very hard to climb back up to the high road once you've joined them on the low road. I just wait. They eventually will, because they're always happier up there. It's not about winning. It's about inspiring them. Like, look, now you can scream and kick all you want. I'll just be right here on the high road waiting for you. And then when they do join you, don't talk about the bad behavior. That's just mean, shaming and blaming. And it's going to make them feel worse. Is it going to make them feel better or worse? Worse. Deal with bad behavior, but focus on the good kid. Don't talk about it. You can just say, okay, so you broke that rule. You kicked your brother. So here's the consequence. That's it. You shouldn't kick your brother. You know better than that. That's all the shaming and blaming. You're not a leader if you're doing that. It's the exact opposite of a leader. You're going into that trying to make them feel, it's a revenge thing that you do. You're trying to make them understand. They already understand they shouldn't kick their little brother. See what I mean? They already know, but you can't help yourself. You just got to get that little reminder in that they were rotten. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Okay, this is No Name on YouTube. I have ADHD and I really struggle with consistency and organization with my kids, 5, 3, and 1 boys. I'm very silly and fun, but also spontaneous and impulsive, which derails our days. Yeah, get systems in place, a school morning routine, a bedtime routine, a mealtime routine. Get routines, get systems in place. Toy rotation. Just check out my videos or whatever. You might want to look into my course. It goes into all that, the older one, not the little one. If you have older kids, I suggest you always get the one geared towards the older kids, because it goes from 3 to 12. So the toddler years is just kind of a waiting game at some point too. You're just waiting for them to outgrow a lot of stuff. You can get respect with a toddler. But yeah, the results are a lot slower and there's no real system to it. You are basically reacting to what they come up with. Like, they're not going to all have tantrums. They're not going to all have problems potty training. But if it comes up, then you look at that toddler course. But I suggest you look at the whole thing anyway. It gives you a good general idea of toddlers. They're just nuts. They're crazy. Cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. I'm going to read out my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1, child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2, set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3, you connect with toddlers in their world, not your world. You don't go to the nail salon with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill. They start to look at you differently when you connect in their world. Number 4 is similar. You discipline toddlers in their world. They're not about words. And a toddler to me is under the age of 3. It's 16 to 35 months. So they need consistent corrective actions. And they learn through repetition. It might take 100 times. It's repetition with them. They learn a little bit differently. They're not so much thinking things through in the moment, but eventually, it's like a toddler, a 2-year-old might touch a hot oven 10 times. but the next time they go up to it, the 11th, they might not. But they haven't given it a lot of thought. It's more of a knee-jerk reaction. So anyway, and the last one is number 5, stop trying to figure them out. Toddlers are not figure-outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. They're in the discovery phase. They might even go like this and smear poop on the wall. Go figure that one out. They're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years, and the first year you were a potato laying on a mattress. They're just not there yet. Okay, I just realized I have to go over to TikTok now. I'm starting to lose my voice, and I've been on here for over an hour now. So anyway, check out it's just been 50 minutes actually. Check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses. You can get on the wait list for coaching if you're interested. Or you can look into our podcast. My daughter and I do that together. It's on all the platforms. It's called BratBusters Parenting. And it's about 4 months old now, I think. We do twice a week. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm hopping over to TikTok if you want to join me over there. Happy parenting. Oops. So many buttons to go to TikTok. That's not me. TikTok does that now. Puts an ad on as soon as you go in there. Okay, TikTok and YouTube. So I just have to rest my voice for a second here. It starts to get gravelly after a while. Just waiting for people to turn up. Instagram's the only one where everyone turns up in one group. They all turn up in one bunch. Like they all live together and they have all their computers and they go now. It's the only one that does that. I think because the Facebook and TikTok, they feed it intermittently. They don't feed it to everyone at once. I'm not sure how it works, but anyway, it's really weird. Hello, Wixie Wi-Fi. 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 Okay. Yeah, I get asked this from time to time. I'm assuming you're new, Hannah. Isn't never having to say no not preparing a toddler for life in school? You don't want to be saying no, don't brush your teeth with that toilet brush. It's stuff around the house. I just wanted to child-proof my home so I could just relax and I didn't have to watch them every second. Okay? So they heard lots of no when we were out in public, but at home, they didn't have to. Plus, because they weren't used to being precocious and getting into stuff, when we went out, they were less likely to touch stuff than a lot of other kids. But yeah, I had so many friends who said, oh my God, they got into the cupboard and there was peanut butter everywhere. I never wanted to deal with that. I just didn't want to. So I just made sure I never did. They never got into anything because they never had access to anything when they were toddlers. And then by the time they were old enough to realize, then they didn't touch anything anyway. So, and like I said, because they weren't used to getting into stuff and being precocious, when we went out, they were often the least likely to get into stuff at someone else's house. There'd be all these playgroup kids around. All the kids would be touching everything, and my kids just didn't. It was quite interesting. So yeah, they heard the word no, but not at home. I had a client who they were telling me this horror story. Well, it didn't end up that way, but they thought it was going that way. Anyway, they couldn't find their 16-month-old little girl, and they looked everywhere. They were panicking. They were freaking out. It had been quite some time. And they thought someone must have cut a key or something to their house, got in, stole the child, because they were doing laundry or something. They wouldn't have heard necessarily. So anyway, they couldn't find their 16-month-old. It was just the mom home alone. So she's panicking, and so she was just about to call the police. Then she heard giggling, and she looked up. The 16-month-old was on top of the fridge. They had got, the drawers with the childproofing. They had just managed to pull out each drawer enough that they could get like a half an inch. They could get the little toes on with no socks. The sticky little toes were climbing up onto the counter, onto the bread maker on top of the fridge. It was there for ages. And that's a climber. There are 4 things that kids are born to do or they're never going to do. One is climbing, one is running, one is hitting, and another one is tantrums. It's in their DNA. They're just going to do these things or they're never going to do them. My kids, the only one they did was my son had tantrums. And runners and climbers often go together. The runners are the ones who take off on you in public. They often go together because they don't have any physical fear. They have no inhibitions physically. They might be the athletes or the gymnasts of tomorrow, right? They're climbers and all that stuff. So it might be good in the long run, but when they're toddlers, it can be a real pain. Okay, welcome to my, I was just yabbering on. I didn't even keep forgetting to introduce myself. Anyway, my name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on my website, BratBusters.com, you can check out my free behavior board, my courses. You can get on the wait list for coaching if you want to work with me one-on-one. Or you can look at our podcast. My daughter and I work together, and she does the podcast with me. She feeds me all the questions. I never know what we're going to be talking about. I can't plan anything. I only do off the cuff. I remember the most nervous, I used to do a lot of TV, and the most nervous I ever was they told me, they had some mix up. So they were going to pre-record my segment because I just went on as the parenting expert kind of thing. So I hated it because then you think, it can be changed. It can be fixed up. Whereas if I'm live and I'm just saying stuff, so that's my daughter. She plans all the podcasts and then she feeds it to me. And the joke has become that I always say, I hate talking about that. I never have anything to say. And of course I yabber on for an hour. But we're having a lot of fun. We're best friends. She's 30. And we're very lucky we're best friends. My 8-year-old is not ready to learn anything. That's the broad statement. I don't quite know what you mean by that. You're very welcome, Melissa. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Actually, this is my biggest platform. I don't know how many followers I've got, about 840,000 or something. Anyway, we're 860. I don't remember. Anyway, I went on TikTok. I think it was 3 years ago now. I'm not sure. It was 2 or 3 years ago. Anyway, my daughter kept saying, Mom, because I was just doing the mainstream media and working with referrals and stuff like that, right? Pretty standard stuff for a coach to be doing. Anyway, I was never any good at social media. I just didn't see any value in it. I never got any followers doing. I just didn't know what I was doing. Anyway, so she kept saying, Mom, there's this thing called TikTok, or, you got to get on TikTok. So I said, well, I'm not a 12-year-old dancer. And so I fought it for a whole year. I didn't go on TikTok. And she kept saying, Mom, you got to get on TikTok because it's really off the cuff. It's fast. It's not planned. I'm very casual. I don't like planning anything out. So anyway, and I went on there. I think within 6 months, I had 500,000 followers. I blew up overnight. It was unbelievable. There was, I think, 3 days there. I got 30,000 followers each day over 3 days. Like just unbelievable. So I have a real soft spot for TikTok because that's where I blew up. Then my daughter came on with me full time and she does all the social media, the Instagram, the Facebook and all that stuff too. So, but yeah, just TikTok. I can't tell you how much it's changed both of our lives. Just that fact that I went on TikTok and blew up overnight, much to my shock and surprise, because I'm an older woman, what the heck? And I was standing in my bathroom holding my shaky camera, just talking like this, like it was unreal. Okay, let's get going with your questions. How can you correct in public? Okay, if they're really little, there's not much you can do with a toddler. You just have to correct them if possible in public. But use consistent corrective action. If they're 3 years old and over, you say, I'll tell you what, we'll discuss that when we get home. It's called deferred punishment or deferred discipline, whatever. So you say, but you bring it up when you're out. We'll discuss that when we get home. And if they keep bugging, what are you going to do? I said, we'll talk about it later. If they keep bugging you, say, I'll tell you what, you keep bugging me about this, I'll make it worse. They'll eventually learn. The first time you do this, it's not going to work, but they're going to start to clue in. Oh, wait a minute. You're starting to figure this all out, aren't you? So, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to read this out. It's from No Name again. It's on YouTube. And by the way, all my lives are saved on YouTube if you're interested. Okay. Any thoughts on homeschooling kids? I homeschool my 5-year-old and I have a 3 and a 1-year-old. Yeah, I don't have any opinions on that because that is personal choice. It's not something I would give advice on. Well, for one thing, I don't know anything about it. And even if I did, I wouldn't recommend one over the other. Like I wouldn't recommend private school, public school, Montessori, non-Montessori, homeschooling. It's more of a personal choice. Yeah, you've got to decide. There's another one that's like that. Two other things that are like that is one is co-sleeping. That's your personal choice. I don't have an opinion on it. I know what I did, but I don't have an opinion for anybody else. And the other one is, breastfeeding, how long. And that can go into the medical issue too. So I don't stick it. But some women breastfeed for years and they'll ask my opinion on that. That's a personal choice. like homeschooling, personal choice. A lot of my clients homeschool. The only thing I've ever seen that is quite common with homeschool kids is they usually go off to high school, like public or private high school. You know, they're not usually homeschooled right through high school. They sometimes will struggle socially because they're not used to being thrown out into the world, right? And because even though they may have a really good homeschool community, homeschool kids are different. I've talked to teenagers who've said to me, we can spot a homeschooler a mile away. So they can pick a homeschool kid, which is interesting. I've heard that many, many times. So that's the only consistent negative that I've heard. It's not every time, but I've heard it a lot. So what I suggest you do for that is don't just have them socialize in the homeschool community, have them socialize outside of the homeschool community. So they get used to dealing with us regular folk. You know what I mean? Because most people were not homeschooled. Most people are out in public or private schools. Oh, this is from Cathers. You're helping form two amazing little boys. Yeah, I put a lot out there, like with the lives and videos and the podcast and all that, because most people are never going to hire me, which is, of course, they're not going to hire me, most of them. But I still want to make a difference. I really believe in what I'm teaching because this comes from leadership. All children deserve to have a leader, someone they can look up to and talk to and tell anything to right through the teen years. That's what I teach. I want them to feel safe with you. And I want you to have fun raising your kids. I had a blast. It was the most fun time of my whole life, was raising my two kids. I loved it. Like I wallowed in it. I remember just a few months ago, I said to my daughter, because we work together, we see each other every day pretty much. And we're just walking along. And I said, were you kids really aware of how much I wallowed it? And she went, yeah, we knew. So imagine how good that feels when your kids know how much you're wallowing in them. And I didn't have to discipline because I got all that sorted out when they were little. So, but yeah, it was just a friendship, but I was still mom. Before anything, we were friends, but I was mom before I was anything. That was always very clear that I was mom first. That was my most important role. It was not friend, it was mother. They don't need middle-aged friends. That's just a bonus, right? But yeah. Raising my girls was the best time of my life. Yeah, I loved it. I love parenting. It was fun because I made sure that the discipline was all sorted out when they were little, and then it was mutual respect. And I was in trouble more than they were. I would say, "Oh, I promise I'll do something," then I'd forget, and then I'd have to make it up to them. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. And I remember I heard this from a few different school moms, and they said every time we see, I had a blue RAV4, and they said every time we see your blue RAV4 go down the road, this is all we see with you and your two kids. We were laughing. You know that cartoon where they'd laugh and talk and their top of their heads would disappear? I don't know what cartoon that was. But yeah, we had fun. Like it was just fun. Okay. Mm. Okay. If you're going to ask me questions, you have to put an age in and you have to put it all in together. Like don't continue a question in another comment because they all fly through and I just can't keep track. Any advice on clingy toddlers? They'll eventually learn. This was quite cute, actually. My daughter was a toddler is under 3, but anyway, my daughter was 3 and I joined her in ballet. She was a magnet with me, but she was already used to being dropped off at the gym daycare every morning because I worked out every day. So a weekday. So she was used to being dropped off. She didn't like it. She would rather be with me. So she was being dropped off from the time she was about 18 months old. Once my kids were up and confidently on their feet, that's when I went back to the gym and dropped them off in the daycare at the gym. Anyway, so she didn't really like it. But anyway, she's turning 3 and I thought, great, I'm going to put her in dance, ballet or whatever. So all the moms are sitting there. And my daughter wasn't a crier. Like she never had a tantrum ever. She was very like just quite easy, just born that way. My son had tantrums, but she didn't. Anyway, So she did not want to be doing this dance. She wanted to just be with me, and I'm right there. I'm sitting on the sideline with all the other moms because they're just tiny at this stage, right? And it was the very first lesson. And her chin started to quiver, and she kept looking over at me like this. Every time she'd look at me, this is what she saw. Like, suck it up, princess. You're fine. I'm right here. But I wouldn't give in to that. And that was exactly what my mom was like. If I got all like, I don't want it, I would have looked over at my mom, exact same face. Like, you're all right. I'm right here. So I wanted to encourage her to separate from me. So I didn't coddle it, is what I'm saying. Because you asked if they're clingy. I didn't coddle it. So, mind you, she didn't like the daycare at the gym that much. So I would go back on time with her. My son loved it. He used to have a tantrum when we left. That was his social life. He loved it. But she didn't. So she was fine there. She didn't cry or anything, but she just couldn't wait for me to come back. So as soon as I finished doing my class, my workout, then I would go back and pick her up. Whereas my son, we used to laugh because we'd be like 2 hours because we'd walk. All of us moms would walk really slow from the aerobics room down to the daycare to pick up our kids. But yeah, I picked her up pretty much right away. But my son, he loved it there. They're all different. You parent them all differently. I was a horrendous tease with my son. He loved it. My daughter, not so much. No, she liked being teased. She called it being the center of attention. She did like it. But I didn't scare her. Whereas my son, I would be more likely to be hiding in the pantry and scaring the bejeebies out of him. I used to say my goal was always, I used to tell him this. My goal was always to get you to soil yourself. That's why I love parenting. I had so much fun. You see, because I have a really goofy sense of humor, and usually kids do too. So I relate very well. In other words, I don't relate very well to adults, but I relate very well to kids. I like that stuff. I think it's funny. Okay. I would say no. Is there a way to share parenting tips we learned from you with a friend without being rude? No. I think you want to give advice, is what you say. Unsolicited advice is always an insult or criticism. Like, it would be like if I had a friend who was overweight and I said, by the way, I found this great diet center. It's like that. Would you do that with a friend who had too much weight on them? Or, you see, it's the same thing. Unless they ask you. Like, you're soliciting my advice by being on my platform. But in my personal life, I don't think I've ever given parenting advice. Unless they asked. And even then, I'm careful. That's none of my business. Okay. Lisa, I just want to tell you that I used a solid no and redirection with my toddler a bunch today. Yeah, I do that. Depends on the age and the situation. But yeah, I'll do that. I always make sure I say no. Not that does much, but it signifies that, you're going to take care of business. So no, and then you can redirect. Depends on the age, though. I don't do that with a 3-year-old, but I certainly would do that with like a 12 or 15-month-old. I use a lot of redirection. Any advice for autistic toddler discipline? Nothing I've tried is working, even with consistency. Yeah, that would be coaching. That's what I call special needs, and that's only one-on-one coaching with me. If you're interested, I do have a wait list for that. So. Yeah. And the thing with autism, there's a couple of comments on there about autism. This is what I find. There's a lot of situations that are similar, like different challenges with kids that are similar. Autism, not so much. I find that what I need from parents is what has worked and what hasn't worked in the past. Because what we're going to be doing is throwing mud at the wall and see what sticks. They are all quite different. Depends where they are on the spectrum, but not just that. It's they have different tendencies. Are they stemming? Are they, it's just all these different things that they do, or that they like or they don't like. So it is really extremely targeted to each individual child. And I don't replace therapy or any special, anything else they get. I teach parent-child relationships. So that's all I do. But yeah, it's, they're just all so unique. There is there is a couple of things that are pretty consistent, but majority of it is unique to that child. How do you parent a 7-year-old that has no filter and speaks her mind, but sometimes sounds rude? Okay, I have no filter, but I'm pretty careful, like, in that I know what I'm doing. Like, what I mean is, I have no filter when I'm talking about parenting, but I'm here to teach you stuff. In my personal life, I would have to say I have more of a filter because I don't want to hurt anyone. But here, I'd be more inclined to maybe hurt someone's feelings just to get my point across. Because I'd rather tell you what you need to hear rather than what you want to hear. But with a kid, it's personal. If they're saying things that is rude, I would address that. I just would. But I would need to know exactly what they said. Like, you know what I mean? I need to figure out what's behind it. Did you know that it's impossible to be mean to other people if you're happy? It's like it just doesn't work. So if your kid is being mean to other kids, they must have something going on. Do your kids parent like you? If not, why? Well, I only have one grandchild. That's my son's. Well, they used to always tell me they're going to parent much like they were raised, because I think they liked the way they were raised. We had a great relationship. So, and they were nice kids. But they're going to have their own personality. Like I would say, my daughter-in-law would be more like me. And I think because of that, I think my son is more inclined to be a little bit more the pleaser. We'll see. She's only 14 months old. So we'll see. He said, I'll probably be the one to let her get away. They both said that he'll probably be. And I think he's like that because he knows she'll be in charge. She'll be the one taking care of business. Do you know what I mean? Maybe if she wasn't, he would take more of that role. But that's often the way it goes. Is if there's one strong leader, why bother? You know what I mean? Like just let the other one do it. So I would assume she'll be more the leader, and he'll be more the pleaser. But my daughter said, and they're going to have their own, like, yeah, some of it's like me, but neither of my kids are as goofy as I am. So I was very goofy. So like nuts, really. So, but not with discipline, but with, goofing around with them all the time. So we have different personalities. So lots of things will be different. But yeah, it's wonderful. Like I would never offer advice because that would be insulting. And I haven't seen anything that they're doing wrong anyway. Like, yeah, I don't give advice in my personal life. But yeah, they're doing a great job. I do have the potty training course. This is Leslie on YouTube, but it's now amalgamated into the boot camp courses. I used to have, I think, 4 little mini courses. What was happening with those is that because it wasn't all encompassing, it wasn't complete enough, that they were dealing with just one thing, but then they had so many other questions around it. And we just started, my daughter and I talked about it, and we said, no, they've got to be complete courses. So if you're dealing with like potty training and then something comes up with behavior, you need to know how to handle that. See what I mean? It wasn't complete enough. I thought, and we had them, I had those as mini courses for maybe a year or 2. And then we realized that we needed to amalgamate them into I only have 2 courses, 2 boot camp courses, one from 16 to 35 months, and then one from 3 to 12 years old. I hopefully will get a teenage one. I never was going to do a teenage course because I specialize in teen crisis work, and you can't do a course on that really. So then I realized most parents of teenagers are not in crisis. It's just that was my specialty. So I thought, well, I can't do a course on teen crisis work. But yeah, I don't need to. I can just do a general course on how to relate to your teenager, which brings up this top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. I'll read this out. Number 1, listen to understand and show empathy. You don't gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. Number 2, this is with teenagers. Number 2, negotiate as much as possible. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Reciprocity, mutual respect, right? Number 3, with teenagers, don't sweat the small stuff. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, just say, well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? And laugh it off. Or do you want to hear what I did yesterday? And laugh it off. In other words, nothing wrong with not being perfect. We all make mistakes. It's part of learning. Number 4, don't leverage the good times to discuss the bad times. So when do you discuss the bad times? Never. What's the point? Number 5, you can be a right fighter or you can be happy. Think about it. With your teenager or any adult relationship, you can be a right fighter or you can be happy. I used to be a right fighter. I don't do it at all anymore. I don't fight anybody anymore. I don't have anyone in my life who would be antagonistic. So you eliminate all those people when you get old. But yeah, think about it. You can be a right fighter or you can be happy with your teenager. If you're arguing, and by the way, if you are fighting and arguing with your teenager, you're usually right. Not always, and they already know it, but they're going to dig their heels in and fight anyway. So what's the point? Just say, I'll tell you what, let's just talk about it later. Do not say, we'll talk about it when you've calmed down. That's snotty. That's an accelerator. Okay, that's my top 5 tips for parenting teenagers. My favorite age is teenagers. This one's a tough one to answer because it could go in a million different ways. What are signs that you have a strong relationship, safe place, starting with your toddler? Well, you kind of know when they feel safe with you. They climb into your lap to read books, and yeah, so I don't quite know what you mean by that. But there can be like, let's say oh no, I don't want to go into all that. It's just too big. It's too many different variables that could go with. So you can build a strong relationship with your toddler, of course, but it's when I don't know. There's just so many different signs, so many different ways they can show it. They tend to, no, I don't want to go into that either. The reason is that I know I can go off on a tangent with this one. It's kind of a big one. It's a big topic. And that would be more like a podcast. There you go. That would be more of a podcast. That's where the podcasts go more in depth. Here, I'm just throwing out a few answers kind of thing. But yeah, that would be more like a podcast because it's kind of a big topic. I'll tell you an interesting story, though. I didn't expect this. It's kind of confusing. But anyway, I used to volunteer at school a lot. So the kids were used to me. I was always dealing with the more difficult kids, behaviorally. So anyway, they had like an activity day. The kids were in grade 2. And there was an activity day. The teacher, I think, was a substitute or new. So the kids didn't know this teacher really well yet. And it was a young teacher, too. Anyway, so a bunch of us moms were volunteering because they had activity day. We're going to be splitting up into different groups and we're going to be doing different activities, and they go around the room, right? So anyway, I got all the difficult kids, all of them. Like, we each got 6 kids. I got all 6 of the challenging kids because I was used to working with them, right? So I got them all. My group was the calmest group by far. They were having fun. They were doing what they needed. The other kids were kind of running around, not respecting the parents. And the parents kept looking over at me like, what's she doing? And I had their kids too. So anyway, this was the weird part. I did not expect this. And I'm pretty tough, right? Especially if I'm dealing with a group. I'm more one-on-one. When I teach parenting, it's more one-on-one kind of stuff. But in a group with tons of other like different parents, kids, it's just different. So I work differently with them than I teach you how to parent. So anyway, I'm still a leader though. Anyway, this was really weird. The fire alarm went and it was not scheduled. Some kid or whatever had pulled it, right? And they shouldn't have. It scared the kids. They were in grade 2. They all ran to me. They didn't run to the teacher or their moms. They ran to me. Why on earth would all those kids run to me? Why would they do that? Because a leader makes kids feel safe. A leader, they ran to me because they thought she'll know what to do. That's what you want. You want kids, and then they end up going to their moms, of course. It's not that they love me or like me more. It was just, I'm that leader. I'm the safe place to land. They trusted that I know how to take care of things. So I didn't expect that. I was quite shocked at that. And the moms were not impressed at all. Oh, that's funny. Oh, this is a good question, Tabitha. Do you allow TV all day if they aren't feeling well? Yep. If they're sick, I give them whatever they want. All the rules go out the window if they're sick. Absolutely. You meet their needs and manage their wants. Their needs are to be healthy. The wants are usually the bad behavior in that, and they want TV, and give them everything. Yep. And they understand the difference. Once they're feeling well again, you go back to normal. They revert. Can you be a child's safe place but not a leader? You can. Yes, you can. Of course you can. They love you and they can feel safe with you, but they always will feel safest with a leader. That's that one that sort of knows how to take care of business. Is it normal for teenagers to act narcissistic, lack of empathy, etc.? It's almost abnormal if they don't. Think about what they're going through. And this is why I love teenagers so much. I just understand them. Their brains, their hormones, they're going through a lot. They have a lot to process. That's why they are so self-absorbed. All these feelings and thoughts and social challenges, and they're also trying to break away from you and find their own identity. You got to respect all that stuff. Yes, of course they don't. You know what? I can remember this. I was 16 years old or 17, and it was just my mom and I. My dad had passed on, and my brother was all grown up. He's like 16 years older than me. So I never grew up with a sibling because I had 3 adults, my brother and my 2 parents, because he was so much older. So anyway, so we were both kind of like only children. Anyway, it was just my mom and I. And she was, we were moving into the house that my dad had built. It was too big for us. So she had built this smaller, like a ranch style house. A rancher is just one level. And it was a really nice little home. I have 0 memory of the move. 0. And I can remember thinking about this in my 20s. I'm in my 60s now. And I can remember because I was always studying kids and trying to figure them out. And I think I was starting to sort of work around a few teenagers, not real difficult teens, but just starting. And I thought, why are they so selfish? And then I remembered, I thought I had you know why I didn't remember the move? I didn't help her one little bit. Not one little bit. I'm sure she forced me into doing my pack. I don't remember doing anything. Nothing. Wow. How self-absorbed and narcissistic was I? I remember thinking that in my 20s. I have no memory of that move. She did it all. I should have been helping her out. But I was a teenager. I was an idiot. But then she also never demanded a lot of me either. You know? Like she probably could have forced me into it. I just didn't think of it on my own. I think that's it. It's not like she was asking me to do stuff and I was saying no. She just wasn't very demanding of me. So I just didn't think to offer. I think that was it. And I thought, what the hell was wrong with me? Because I was in my 20s and of course I'm there for my mother, Anyway, she was my best friend. She's on my website if you want to look it up. She was a joy-seeking missile. I learned a lot from my mother in life. She had a lot of really nice sayings. She goes, sweetie, happiness is a choice, not a circumstance. It's not the cards you're dealt, it's how you deal with it. She also used to say that everything's temporary, the good and the bad. And how can you appreciate the good if you've never experienced the bad? Like she just had she had a tough life. She had all these wise sayings. She was a very warm, positive, joy-seeking missile and very easy to talk to, very funny. I just adored my mother. She died at 93 in my arms, and her last breath was a laugh because I said to her, "You're right, Mom. Here you're on your deathbed, and we have nothing to talk about," because we talked about everything. We said, "I love you" every day. We talked about everything, and her last breath was a double gasp, and I knew she'd laugh. It was her very last breath. What a way to go, eh? Like what a way to go. That was 9 years ago. How lucky was I to have her for all those years? Anyway. Did you ever say because I said so, or did you always give a reason why? You don't need to give a reason. I just never said because I said so. Or I might have said if they question, I don't know. No, I didn't have to because they didn't argue with me, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, they just knew what needed to be done. And I rarely ever pulled my parenting card. That's what I call pulling the parenting card, is because I said so. That's the authority, the dictator type parent, because I said so. That's why I didn't talk like that. I only pulled it a couple of times. And I remember one in particular, I won't go into it. It was quite frightening. And it was, you do what I tell you to do and don't look back. It was a scary situation. Me and my kids were traveling from Australia to Canada. And we just ended up at this really weird little airport. And they turned out all the lights and left us out in the parking lot in the dark. And then there was a van circling this little mini airport. It was horrific. And I said to my son, who was 14, I think, and my daughter was 9, I said, if I say go, grab your sister and run and don't look back, no matter what you hear. I pulled my parenting card. I didn't tell him what he knew. I didn't tell him why. I pulled my parenting card. I think that is actually the only time I ever did anything like that. I just said, don't look back no matter what you hear. Oh, just got the chills thinking about that. God, that scared the hell out of me. Okay, we were fine. What is your tone when you're disciplining? This is how I discipline. Okay, kid does something. Well, the pool story. Check out the pool story. You can just Google BratBusters pool story. It'll pop up. What I say is, if a kid does something wrong, I say, okay, so you did that you broke a rule. So here's the consequence. I'll give you 15 minutes to empty the dishwasher or whatever it is. And the time starts now. All I'm doing is timekeeping. If they don't do that, then I'd say, 15 minutes is up and you didn't do the dishwasher. Then they run and do it now. And you say, never mind, the 15 minutes is up. You don't have to do it now. So 24-hour media blackout starts now. Do you understand? That's how I talk. It's like no emotion, calm, quiet, slowly, don't rush it. No big deal. I hate you. I hate, like my kids never said that, but if your kids say that, I hate you, I just go, whatever. I say, be calm during, wait a minute. That's in my top 3 leadership qualities. Stay calm during the storms is number 1. So when you're disciplining, stay completely calm. It's a business transaction. There are no emotions in disciplining. None. It's like a business transaction. Who keeps giving me that freaking cowboy hat? That's the second time I've had that. My daughter said, I saw you were an astronaut in one of your lives. It was the cowboy hat. It's a mustache. I don't know how she mistook that for an astronaut. Anyway, that's my top 3 leadership qualities. Number 1, calm during the storms. Number 2, be crazy during the rainbows. When everything's happy, you can be running around with underpants on your head. Be crazy. And then become a great listener. Those are my top 3 leadership skills as a parent. Anyway, I got to hit the road. I got work to do tonight still. And thanks so much for joining me. If you check out my website, BratBusters.com, you can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching. There's a wait list for that if you're interested. Okay, thanks for the cowboy hat. And anyway, you can look into our podcast. My daughter works with me and full-time now, and we do the podcast together. We're having a lot of fun with that. So thanks so much for joining me, and we'll talk again soon. Happy parenting.